Hello everyone, good evening. Sagar this side. So, how many of you had attended my last workshop that I took yesterday? Because I see quite a few names. So do we have a new audience or we have the same audience from the last workshop? Yes, guys, you can unmute yourself. There is a unmute button.
Hi Sagar, I was there yesterday.
Okay. Hi, Nazir.
Yeah, nice.
Anyone who is for the first time today? Okay, so I take it as all uh, the same audience that we had in the last workshop. Yes. Okay. So yes, people are confirming that they were present. Okay. So second day attendee. Basically, we had not covered much yesterday. So yesterday, I'll just recap you what did we consider. So we had a discussion done on why automation is important, or why network automation, or what is network automation. And we had prepared some pointers. Then I showed some example, a very simple example using Python's netmiko library to fetch the output of show IP int brief. And I did some enhancement or some tweakings so that I can add some banners, some comments, etc. So basically, this was done. If you have missed that, you would have received the recording of that. If you still have not received, then you will receive it after today's session. All right. So this is something what we discussed, and at the end of last workshop, we discussed on what to be set as agenda for the second day. So most of guys requested to show something on Palo Alto automation, Palo Alto firewall automation. So today I'll consider it as a workshop where we will see some Palo Alto automation. In case if you're not thorough with Palo Alto, or if you have never worked with firewalls or any sort of uh, let's say if you have not worked, then consider this as gonna be the same script with very minimal changes that you do in case of Cisco or F5 or 40K. Okay, very minimal things of changes that you do. The same script you can replicate on a different vendor by making 5 to 10% of changes. That's all. Okay, so don't worry if you're not familiar with Palo Alto. As I told you last class, automation is on top of all the vendor. So you should not think that automation with Palo is something else, and automation with F5 would look something different. Automation with Cisco would look different. At the end, they are all the same behavior, irrespective of vendor. You know, to automate Palo, then you can automate Cisco and vice versa. So as I promised to show you the Palo Alto automation, so I'll stick to the same point. So what I've done is from one of our lab, I have powered on the Palo Alto instance. So as I told you, we give you the lab access once you enroll to the 2 to 3 month of batch. You get this sort of lab access, and I'll explain you how do you interact or power on this node. For now, just take it simple that I've powered it on, and I have the terminal of a Palo Alto. So you can see this is a Palo Alto backend, the CLI of this. So if I do the command like show interface management, it will give me the management IP 172.16, etc. So I've opened the dashboard of it. Okay, so this is the dashboard now. dashboard of Palo Alto. Now, what does this tab says? This is not the class to discuss about Palo Alto, so I am not gonna get in depth of like what is policy, what is object and network. I assume that you might know what Palo Alto does and what the dashboard or policy or object basically do here. We will just take it from automation side. All right. So here, if you see, the Palo Alto has two ways to communicate. Any Palo Alto has two ways. One is the backend, which is the SSH method, and the other one would be using the graphical method, which is via HTTP protocol. Okay, so this is from the previous class. If you remember, we were discussing about the protocol that are used. So we said SSH, HTTP, SNMP, Telnet. So we said that let's rule out the last two because one is UDP and one is a clear text. So let's consider SSH and let's consider HTTP to automate any vendor. So from Palo Alto perspective, I'll show you the automation done on SSH port and HTTP port. So for SSH, I'll consider Python as a programming language. I will consider NetMiko as a library. For HTTP, I'll make use of the API automation. Okay, fair enough. Balanced class then. So first, let me show you the Python way of automating. So if you see, this is from my last class, right? So this is something we did for a Cisco device. Now, if I have to use the same script for Palo Alto, I just need to do 5 to 10% of tweaking and I'm almost there. So let's decide a username. So the usernames are configured admin. Let's say the password, I would set it up here. This is the password of Palo Alto. I know because I set it up, that's why. Let me give the IP address. Let's say the IP address of a Palo Alto is this. I don't need secret. What device type it is? It's a device type Palo Alto PAN OS. All right. And this commands will not work in Palo Alto. So you as a Palo Alto engineer should know what are the different commands. So let's assume show interface management, or let's say show system resources or info. So you can also test this command on the CLI, show system info. See. So once you have a working command, then you can use it. So now this is for Palo Alto, the script which we used yesterday for Cisco. Now I have done some changes and I should be okay. So let's see, let's run this. If we get some issue, we can fix that up by seeing the error code. So what is this script about? This script is about fetching two outputs, show interface management and show system info from this Palo Alto device, 29.198. See, now you have the output. What does it say? Output for CLI command show interface management is this. So this is the Palo Alto management. And then we have the output of the second CLI command. Output for CLI command show system info. So it's a PA version, PA virtual machine, IP address, and all its detail. The same detail that you fetched it manually via the backend. So what type of automation did we do? We did a SSH based automation now. So that is what I said. When you do a automation, you need to think how would you reach the device via SSH, via HTTP, via SNMP. So this is what you makes you think about the device first. So I thought, let me take the SSH protocol for the first time, and I automated. I have the output with me, and I told you, if I have the output with me, I can generate an Excel sheet or a text or a notepad and save it. That we will do it in the class. That's not a big deal. So the point here is, whatever you did for Cisco with just 5 to 10% modification, now the script is ready for Palo Alto. Now let's assume you wanted it for F5 or FortiGate. What changes would you do? Definitely IP address. You will keep your FortiGate IP. What else? Definitely username and password. Whatever FortiGate username and password that you have set, you will do that. And the device type. So device type now would be FortiGate. What else? You know that as a network engineer, the CLI command is vendor perspective, right? So the command of Palo may not work in the case of FortiGate. So you need to replace them. That's all. The rest, whatever connect handler, the for loop, the print statement, the send command, they remains the same. You don't need to worry about changing them. They don't get changed as per the vendor. I am aware where people get confused. They think that if send command is for Palo, might be for FortiGate, I have to keep something else, something like this. Now, I don't need to do that. That is how the library Netmiko is designed. You just need to first point to the right template. Once you point to the right template, everything will be taken care by the very common different functions and modules. So if you go to GitHub and look for Netmiko, I'll show you there are multiple vendors. See, if you go here, Netmiko, these are all different vendors. Yesterday I showed you for Cisco. Today I'm showing you for Palo Alto. It's here. You just had to say that this is my vendor. Once you reveal that, rest the package will know what shall be done. You just need to define from network side that this is my command line and I need the output. So this is one example for the day. Now I want to show you one more quick example. So in the example one, I automated Palo Alto over on SSH using Python Netmiko package, and I fetched the output of show commands. Okay, multiple show commands. Now I'll show you very interesting script. Now the script was given or discussed by a student in my last batch. So basically he was assigned to pull the bandwidth report. Bandwidth report from Palo Alto appliance. So it should generate some sort of Excel reporting. Now, Excel reporting cannot have all the lines captured. It should be very accurate data because the Excel would be emailed to the higher management. So for that, we introduce the concept of regular expression in the script. And we use the same Python plus Netmiko combination. So let me show you the output of such result or such condition or such requirement. So here, this particular script, which consists of around 81 lines, while we run this, once we run this, we definitely might need to wait for some time, some additional time, because it will go and capture the required thing, and it will give us such kind of output file. So I have deleted now. Now this folder is complete empty, because once I execute, I want to fetch the updated CSV file, and that CSV file should show me the bandwidth utilized in percentage. Okay, the current bandwidth consumption going on. How would I do manually? Yes, there are commands to check that. If you want to do check via manually, yes, there is one command. It's called show system resource. So when you do this command, you get this sort of output. So from this output, you can check what's the total memory free, memory utilized memory. But I want it in terms of percentage, and I want it in terms of in a represented way, in a Excel format, so that I can send it in a email format. So if you see this output, so you definitely have the different logs here. Wait 1 second. Just a minute. Let me bring up this highlighter. Okay, let me show it with this. So if you see this portion of the output, you will definitely get all the detail, the total memory, the free memory, the used memory. But I want it in a presentable way, in a Excel format. So what I do is I will go and prepare some Python script, and I will integrate it with Excel library. The outcome is a script of 81 lines. Then I execute this. So once I finish this execution, I expect that one presentable format is present. So let's give a wait time of another 2 to 3 minutes, and we should have the Excel generated. Yes, Srinivas, you can have SSL module. You can use NetMiko itself for Linux box also, because they support Linux machine too. All right. So you see here the output is in front of you. It says that Excel is generated. Do you have the Excel? Yeah, the Excel is with you. When you open this up, what happens? Let's have a view. See, now you have a Excel which says that you captured the output for this appliance, this Palo Alto appliance, running this software version. The total memory is so and so kilobytes. The total used memory is so and so. And in terms of layman's example, 49.9% is utilized as of now. So you don't need to do any manual task. Whatever you did, the script did, and you have the Excel with you. You can, let's say in your organization, you had 10 different Palo Alto appliance connected with another vendor or another sort of vendor. So you can have such report generated. So it will show you all the required columns. Okay, so this is what you can do it using automation. Just from a overview glance, let me tell you what is regex. So when you see these queries here, exactly on these lines. So here is where we build the query. Okay, it's called regular expression. And these queries are needs to run against the raw data. Now, the raw data can be in a stored format, but we don't need any stored format as of now because the device itself is reachable to us, right? So I can just take the SSH of that and run my query, fetch the details from that in a real time perspective. If you had the data in a Excel format or a Notepad format, even then you can generate it. But who wants a outdated data Excel for your reference, right? You don't want a outdated data. You want a fresh data, real time data. So whatever data you fetch, you fetched on a real device and a real time. So whatever consumption is going on. And to get the percentage, what I did is I did some mathematical calculations. So I said the total utilized divide by total memory of the Palo Alto multiply with 100. So Python can also be used as a calculator. So that is what the fundamental was used in the script. And then we created some logic to create a file, do the mapping of data respective to each columns. And then you have the end result here, which looks like this. Okay, so you had more number of device, you start getting this for all of them. Some saying 30%, some say 70%, and your job is done. So you can think from any scenario perspective. This is when you wanted to take the bandwidth report. Now there could be requirement that someone is asking you to take the current version, iOS version from all the access layer switches. Might be they are planning to upgrade the software. So how would you fetch it? So this is the workaround for that. You can create an Excel with all the current version, the config register, the uptime, and all those things, and get it going. So again, this automation was done from the port 22 using Python NetMiko. Clear? So these are some examples. Now, example 3, which I'll take you guys to API now. So what happens in API? The automation is done over on HTTP. HTTP act as the uh, main protocol now. So what is port number of this? It's TCP 80. Now, as you know that Palo Alto appliance provides us 2 interface. This is done. Now this is pending. This comes under API automation. API stands for Application Programming Interface. That means the interface of an appliance are programmed using the application that's kept here. So what type of application that you need for initiating this sort of automation? So you need some application like Postman. Now what happens is you will make API calls. You will make API calls on these interfaces. Let's say that you're connected on management interface or any physical interface like gig 0/0 or gig 0/1. You make the API calls. When you make the API calls, you will instruct the API calls to be read only or delete or config, right? So that depends on HTTP operations. There are multiple operations here. One of them is the most used one, get. Get is nothing but for fetching the data. It's like read only. If in case you're making some sort of changes, then you have post. Post is to make a new config block or submit the login form or credential forms. Then you have something called put. Put is when you already have a block configured and you are making some changes on them. Okay, or modification. You can say that modification. Then you have patch. Patch is like you have one block and you're appending another block below that. And then finally, you have something called delete. As the name suggests, you're deleting that complete block. What type of API calls would you make for a Palo Alto? Let's say to create a new zone, agree, or to create a new object, or to create new policy, or let's assume to create a new NAT rule. So how would I do this? Because these are all creation. So I have to use post method. I have to make use of post method. Let's assume that a policy named, let's say named this is already present and you're modifying or you're adding another bad IP to this. So in that case, you don't want to go with post once again. You can go with the put method because now you're just modifying that block existing block. In case you were fetching some interface, the show commands, show interface, or you want to see the policy, or you want to see the NAT rules, you want to see the logs, all fetch related. Which one would you use? You would use the get method. Okay, so this is how you instruct via API call. What's the requirement? You wanna configure, delete, or fetch something. So for that, I'll make use of a Postman tool. All right. So for the Postman tool, the things are pretty simple. You need to first create all the calls first in a systematic order. So I have created one call. Let's say this is to do a initial login using credentials and fetch some session ID or token key. Using that session key, I can then create, delete, whatever. So if you see here, some of the API call has got get operation. Some has got the post operation. Some has got the put operation. Some has got the delete operation. So as I was telling, the requirement could be fetch sometime, could be delete, could be configuring. So if you're configuring it via HTTP, then where is your data? I mean, where is your configuration line? Because in the case of Python, okay, in the case of Python with the library, in case if you would wanted to configure something, definitely can understand you will put those 2-3 lines here and then would be pushed up. But what about in the case of API, in the case of HTTP? How are you telling the data that how are you sending the data from your machine to the Palo Alto appliance? In which format? This is a complete new world. If you are familiar with Palo Alto, sorry, if you're familiar with Python, now think that this is a complete new world for you. Okay, so I'll tell you how does the data is carried upon. We call data as payload now, and we use this particular option under body. So when you click this thing, you will see the payload. So this payload is in a JSON format, and whatever details that you want to set, like the object name, the context name, the IP addressing, the description, you will keep it in a JSON format. So what is JSON now for someone who doesn't know what is JSON? So JSON is basically used for two purposes: encoding and serialization. Now, what is encoder? let's say you got two machines. On one machine, the developer is coding via Python. And on the second machine, the different developer is using, let's say, Java or Go or C or any other programming language, right? Now, you don't want to bring this as a roadblock for your interaction between the two application. This application should talk to this application, and you're just bothered about to carry the data. Now, how the data are carried upon? It is carried upon using some sort of encoding mechanism. So JSON is one sort of encoder which will hold the data. If you see closely, this is your data now. The data which you kept here, these are the data. And these data are coded or encoded in the format of the JSON format, and which can travel from a source to destination. When you get back, you can instruct that you want the data back in JSON or YAML or XML, because all these three terminology, they're all used for the encoder purpose: JSON, YAML, and XML. That is about encoder, that if you have two different programming language and you are interacting between them, how is the data? Because in Python might be the data types are string, list, etc., etc. But in Java, it could be different. But at the end, it's the same thing. You just want to send the data from one side to another side. So that's something called encoder. Now, regarding the serialization, that's nothing but the bit 0 and 1, whatever you pass it on over on the wire. So if you have 0, 1 bits here. So this is what the JSON as a encoder and serialization does. We are using this to embed our data, and the data is sent over on the HTTP protocol from our Postman application towards the interface of the Palo Alto. Once the Palo Alto receives that, it will do the needful. But how does Palo Alto know whether this is a fetch request, delete request, or add request? That happens because we have to define it over here. Okay, I said post request. Post is when you're configuring something, when you're adding or configuring a new block. And where is that API call? This is the API call. So this is your Palo Alto IP, management IP, the port number, the REST API example, the version of your PAN OS, and this is the API call. This is the API call for creation of an object. Now, there can be thousands of API for a single box, depending upon the functionality. Because if you consider Palo Alto, within a Palo Alto, there are a lot of tabs and a lot of options. Let's say from object perspective, you want to create object, you want to delete object, you want to fetch the object, you want to let's say you have object group, then right, again create, delete. So expect there would be thousands of APIs for a vendor, for a single vendor. It's not that one single API call you can do everything. For each task there will be one API. So using that API call, you can do that particular job using the Postman tools. So here, if you see, let's say I wanted to create something. Okay. So let me change the payload. I will say that this is 12 Jan 2023. And I will set some IP. And this object I want to create on a Palo Alto. I hope you know what is post, what is API call, and what is payload. Within the header of HTTP, I have set few attributes. These are attributes generated automatically, and this is added by me. Now, why I'm adding a API key is I don't want to carry the username and password all the time when I make the API call. I want to have a encrypted format. So what I did, for the very first time, I logged into the Palo Alto dashboard using a username password and generated a token key. And that token key, I saved it in the backend. And then I'm using it for all my remaining activities. I will not use username and password. I can use username and password, but why should I reveal my username and password for all the HTTP call? Because HTTP call happens over on internet as well. The source could be on some side and destination is located on a AWS cloud, right? So HTTP is a internet protocol. So why should I use a username and password all the time? Why can't I use a encrypted format? So if you want to see how this encrypted format looks like, so let me show you. It's some sort of coded format. See, this is the one. This is the format, right? So it's safe enough to send this. No one can crack this. So these are from all vulnerabilities and the security concern. It's good that you go with the encrypted format. All right. So when I click on send button, we will see what would happen. The send gives me some sort of output. It says that status 200 OK, which is a green signal. Yesterday I told you some status code for Python. Do you guys remember what is that status code when you see the green signal?
0.
Sorry?
0.
Yeah, code 0. Yeah. Now this is a 200 OK. It's called HTTP status code 200, which is a good signal. And from the output, it says that success. To verify this, I'll directly take you all to the Palo Alto dashboard and we will see if this is being created or not. So dashboard is this. I'll go to object. Under the object address, we should have the new one created. See, 12 Jan 2023. Now let's say you wanted to delete that. You can do it because we have the API call for that. So let's say to delete that, I'll make another API call. I will say that the intention of this API call is to delete. So I will set the appropriate HTTP operation to be delete. There is no need of body for now because I'm not going to create something. I'm just deleting that, right? So the object name is sufficient. Within the header, I've selected the session key and then I'll click send on this. It says success 200 OK. I'll go back and I'll give a quick refresh and that's gone. So this is the API type of automation and very highly used in the case of software defined networking like Epic, SD-WAN and the DNAC plus the next generation firewalls like Palo Alto, FortiGate, because HTTP are much faster when compared with Python NetMiko. You just saw when I generated an Excel sheet for one device, it took close to 2 to 3 minutes because that is a bit slower from a firewall perspective. For a same Cisco device, it would have been fraction of second. But for Palo Alto, it will take some time using the CLI method. But if you go with the dashboard method, the HTTP method, depending upon the latency, you can fetch a very good speed. And it was just took some fraction of second for us to delete, create, and all that thing. Now you might be thinking, if I had to send 10 different such API calls, should I do one at a time? You don't need to do that. There is something called as runner in this application. So this is a option here at the footer or the bottom. What happens is you can prepare your Excel sheet with 10 different API calls and you can import it here. So once you import all those 10 API calls, you can just run it from this tab. All the 10 API call, whether it's to create 10 different whips or might be one to create, one to delete, one to post or whatever, you can just do it all at single shot. But there are certain times when you need something more than API. That means apart from pushing it via API creation or deletion. Might be you wanted to also create some sort of Excel reporting. You wanted to read from Excel reporting. Once you did something, you wanted to also have a fetch and then generate a report, some sort of dependency, which in the Postman, it's bit complicated because Postman is a very straightforward thing. If you want delete, create, it's easy. But if you wanted some complex scenario, so for that, what you can do is you can convert each APIs into Python script. Now, how would I convert this particular API into this type of Python script? Should I write it from a scratch, from starting from the first line? I don't need to, because Postman has a very good option, which is called as sniplet. So I'll show you one option over here. So when you maximize this tool, at this option, let me highlight it. So do you see this option on the right hand side? The code sniplet. I'll tell you what happens when you click on that. So when you click on that, you have the ready-made Python script with you for this particular API call. You can also change from Python request to any other thing. You can do a curl as well. So you know the curl command line, right? This command line, you can directly go to the backend of the Palo and also run this. But let's say you wanted to go with Python request library. So you have a automated script with you. So this script, you can go and keep it in the PyCharm, right? Then make sure that particular library has been installed. So you go to file, you go to settings, you go to the plus symbol, marketplace, and then search for request, install that package. You have 99% working script, but there could be some changes that you would need to do. One of the thing is you need to disable the SSL certificate check. So you can add another argument here, verify false. That's all. And rest looks like ready to use. If I need to explain what is happening here, this is where you're calling the library request and JSON. This is the URL. It's a simple URL, not API URL or API call. It's a simple URL. This is Palo Alto appliance IP, and rest of thing is your API calls here. This is the payload, because now you want to create something using the post method. So you have a payload. Payload, you have put the JSON method and you are holding the data. You also have the header with you. Under the header, you have put the session ID. And within the connection, the line where you are initiating the connection, you said it's a post method. You want the URL, you are declaring the header, you are declaring the payload, and SSL certificate turn off because you don't want any sort of SSL issues in the lab environment. Now what you do, you just execute the script from the Python perspective like this. And then we will wait. So it says that success. I'll go back and I'll give a quick refresh and it's back. So what is the benefit of doing or getting it converted to Python? I can also prepare the regex format and all those things and make it a very big program now, right? So that is what happens. I'll show you all these things in the curriculum when we start, all the different type of shortcuts and the tricks that's involved, which hardly you might find somewhere in the outside. So these are something. And definitely HTTP doesn't end here. There are a lot of things when it comes to HTTP, starting with HTTP operation, status code, HTTP header, the components within header that we need to know. The HTTP topic is very enormous. At least one full class we spend for HTTP theory itself. And in the next class, then I will show you these type of examples. So guys, that's all from my side. I showed you the Palo Alto automation today using the CLI method and the API method. So if you have any doubts, you can let me know. We can have a quick Q&A so that I know if you guys understood a basic on Python automation and API automation. Yes, guys, you feel free to unmute. There is an option to unmute yourself.
Yes, okay. Thanks for the clarification explanation. So you also mentioned that the multiple API which we can run it through the runner, right?
Yes.
Can we also snip that information in case if I wanted to copy everything together?
I didn't get you. Snip in the sense to Python.
Yeah, into Python.
You don't need to do that. You just need to put the different URLs here. URL1, URL2, URL3, and then initiate a post request to that.
Okay, but when you are showing, you actually showed that snip with the complete the code, right? The complete code you actually put it there.
Yeah, that is for single API calls,
API,
not for
okay.
the runner. For runner, what you can do is you can just alter your existing script itself.
Okay.
Or if you have the source Excel file, then you can read the Excel file as well. If you don't want to write the URLs in the script, you put those URL in the Excel file and read it, and then you put a for loop and run it from this.
Okay.
Yes, guys, who else? Who, by the way, how many did get this example, the API one? Ever heard about API automation yet? I think most of the guys would have only know about Python automation, not about API. And there is something called Ansible automation, which I've not discussed because I don't know how many would get that. Yeah, APIs are very straightforward and actually very easy in case you get the flow there when compared to Python and Ansible. So once again, I'll tell you the curriculum, how would we start the batch. Definitely API is not the first day topic. So for the first class, we start with Python theory, which itself will take the complete week. So after the first week of Python theory, we start with Python libraries. We start NetMiko first, then we get into NEPAM, PyNTC, Paramikos, CAPI, subprocess, Nornier, which will be like 2 to 3 weeks of program. Then we get into Ansible, one more week. Then we go with the API, which is another 1 week. Then we get into the Devnet session, which is 1 week or 1.5 week. And intermediately, as I said, I will also give you the projects. So there would be total 10, 15 project, which you would work parallelly while we discuss some scripts. After finishing some scripts, you would be given some assignment. So you start even writing your own scripts or start practicing. So yes, Ali, you got any question? I see you are unmuted.
Hello, yes, please. Actually, my question is different, so I just need to know what should I need to automation through from Python on any or any other programming language where I can do that from the GUI interface.
API is one of them. So the HTTP is one of them. You can also make use of Python with request library to fetch, or there is also something called XML API. So these are all web-based automation.
I see. Thank you very much.
Okay. So have you guys, so how many guys are familiar with basics on Python? What is print? What does
Text printing? Text printing.
Okay, so basically it will make your computer to talk aloud. So when you put some message and ask to print, basically the message get printed up. Okay. What is input?
To take something like to take any input from the user.
Yes.
Read statement.
Yeah, so this is a method, or this is a function where the users can input their data in a real-time perspective. So if I have such kind of statement, it will prompt me to enter the data on a real time. So I have to put so and so. Now this data will go and sit in so and so variable. Let's say I create some variable like this. So now whatever I provide, that data will go and sit in this particular variable. What is variable in
Like
Python?
anything which stores data, like one kind of data, for example, string or integer kind of data.
Okay. So variables are empty containers which are used to store the data and transmit the data from source to destination and destination back to the source. So I have x equals to so and so. That means I'm storing some data in a variable named x. Now, in case if I have to transmit this, then I can make use of netmiko send command, and I can send it using the transport channel SSH, and I can also read it back using the print statement. So variables are like empty container. You can put any type of data, numbers or strings or list or whatever. Okay, now let's assume I'll just give some easy type of question. As you know, Python can calculate or make use of calculation or operators. So what would I get here?
100 200, just it will concatenate the two values.
Okay, what about others? So anyone who would say 300? Yeah, Dave, what is your answer? 100, 200 or 300?
100200, because we didn't define them as integers.
Okay. Yeah, Shubham, what about you?
I think 300 would be okay.
Okay. All right, so let's do quick check.
300.
So when you check that, you see it got concatenated. That
Okay.
means it got joined. Why it got joined? Because now these are not numbers. These are alpha characters. They are like strings. So what happens is you are just joining two things. 100, 200. They are not getting mathematically operated. So how would you get the output of 300? You just take them out of these strings, string representation. Now, if you run the program, you will get the output 300. Why? Because these are numbers now. So this is what are the basic block that we first discuss in the class. Because once you clear all these confusions, then it becomes more easier for you to understand the rest of the library. So that is why in the first day 1, day 2, day 3, this is what would be discussed. What are string, what are integers, what are variables, what are input statement. Once you're good with that, then we get towards the writing of the script. All right. So I just kept this small exercise at the end. So because some people think that I know scripting, so I can get through that Python, and let me start with something. You need to know the basic fundamental. If you know basic fundamental, then definitely any script is very easy for you. You can just with a very 5 to 10% minimal changes, you can write a script from Palo to Cisco, Cisco to FortiGate. And once you're good with Python, get into the Ansible zone, then API, then the Devnet, and then finally conclude the batch. So as I told in the last class, it takes the maximum 2 months, but could be anything between 1 to 1.2 months, because since this is a daily session, so it should not take more than 1 to 1.2 month of thing. And once again, I'll just go through this. You need to contact the backend for the admission. We are starting the actual class from the Monday, which is 16th, I believe. Yeah, 16th Jan 2023. It's gonna be daily 90-hour session, 10 p.m. India sharp. I will start the class over on the Zoom meeting. You get 3 months of lab access, and within the lab, you expect you get Cisco, FI, LTM, Palo Alto, FortiGate, and Juniper VXRX, Cisco ASA, router switches, and all these frequently used ones. In case you need a home lab setup, our backend team will help you to set up on your machine. The only requirement is that you should have a laptop running at least minimum 16 GB RAM with 4-core CPU. Otherwise, these instances will not run and you would never start with your practice. So you can rely on our remote lab. The live classes are 1 to 1.2 month. The recorded of each classes would be given in format of web portal access, which is a lifetime access. And yes, we would be covering that CCNP Encore 10% of automation topic, and as well as CCI Enterprise 10 to 15% of automation topic within this curriculum itself. So I hope you're clear with all the things. So you can engage with the backend yourself, or my backend will contact you tomorrow. So if you have any doubt or any further question, you can ask or talk to them and get yourself enrolled. So I'll see you all on 16th. That's Monday. So any doubt apart from this on anything, any technical thing that we discussed today or in the last class?
Yeah, actually, I have one doubt. Like, I'm not having much experience. Like, I'm just having 1 year of experience in Cisco and FortiGate. So, like, I don't know about like F5 or Juniper, Palo Alto, and all.
I'm
That's
not gonna stretch more on those vendor as
yeah.
well. I'll be keeping Cisco only as a generic automation examples. Only when I get a request that people say that can you show some example for Palo, then I will show you a dedicated class for Palo Alto. That is like a bonus class or extra class, okay? But
Okay.
most of the examples will be covered on a Cisco platform.
Yeah. Okay.
Sagar.
Yeah, Shubham, go ahead.
Sagar, I have a 4-year experience, so should I go with this course?
Yeah, you should definitely go, because as you know, nowadays all even 1 year experience people are coming up with the automation models.
Okay.
So the more experience you have, the more skills you should have it.
Okay. So job opening has available for
Yeah, there are a lot of job opportunities. Yeah, Shri, you have
So,
any question?
so most of the deployment related works and all, it's completely technical. So we are working only on the devices for the configuration or the implementation and everything. On the another side of the part is like if we are going for data collection or report generation. So the technical people are only looking into the actual data, what they needed, but non-technical people, they want actually a presentable data, which should attract them like what they want to actually look at. So if you had some additional information on the data rendering practice, that will be great.
So one of
Yeah.
the data rendering I showed you today using the regex model. So what
Yes,
happens in
the
rejections?
Excel,
That-
what you showed,
Mm.
that is actually one way of actually I can present it to my management or team or anything, but they'll be expecting little more should be presentable to them. So
like what
because
more
those
you-
people, the non-technical guys, they don't look into the very raw data, so they want something colorful,
like
like a Power BI report or some kind of
you're telling about the visualization. So you have
yeah,
lot of
visualization.
integration like Grafana, SolarWinds. You can integrate these reports on those tools as well.
Okay,
Okay,
so would you be
there are
able to
certain there are tools
give some?
there are these third party where you can integrate this. Grafana is one of them, which is getting integrated in all these network visualization charts. You mean to say charts and visualization? Okay.
Correct. So will you give some inputs on those? Because
Yeah.
from
I'll give.
a technical side of people, like it's very difficult to actually put the data into a presentable form.
Yes. The Grafana example I will show you. The graphs I will show you. Okay.
Okay.
Network topology, CDP neighbor graph. So these are called graphs. So I'll show you the examples in the class of it.
Sure.
All right. So I take it as all good for the day, and it was really an interactive session. So I hope you guys have got at least 20 to 30% or more from the 2 session or 2 workshop. I definitely look forward most of you on Monday. So let's meet up on Monday then. Okay. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you. Then. Thanks for that.